The champagne glass shattered against marble, not from celebration, but from rage. Ava Carter stood frozen as her ex-boyfriend's new fiancé smirked across the ballroom, designer dress glittering under chandeliers that cost more than Ava's annual salary. One decision at her sister's wedding would drag her into a world where power wasn't measured in bank accounts, but in blood, where a single handshake with the wrong man, or the right one, could mean protection or destruction. This is that story. Stay until the end, hit that like button, and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. The Chicago Ritz-Carlton ballroom looked like something out of a fever dream, all crystal and cream-colored roses, with enough champagne flowing to fill Lake Michigan. Ava Carter sat at table 17, which might as well have been table exile, picking at salmon she couldn't taste while her sister Melissa's wedding reception pulsed around her like a heartbeat she didn't share. "Mom, I'm bored." Ava glanced at her daughter Sophie, 6 years old and already developing that look, the one that said she knew when she didn't belong somewhere. The kid was wearing a pale pink dress Ava had found at Target, altered herself at midnight 3 days ago because the hem had been all wrong. Next to the other children here, in their custom-fitted designer outfits, Sophie looked like exactly what she was, a beautiful girl whose mother was drowning in medical bills and couldn't afford the kind of childhood memories money bought. "I know, baby. Just a little longer, okay?" Ava smoothed Sophie's dark hair, so much like her own. "Aunt Melissa would be sad if we left early." That was a lie. Melissa wouldn't notice if Ava spontaneously combusted in the middle of the dance floor. Her younger sister had barely acknowledged her presence beyond the obligatory hug during photos, the kind of embrace that looked warm for the cameras but felt cold as November wind. "Is that woman still staring at us?" Sophie whispered. Ava didn't need to look. She knew exactly who Sophie meant. Aunt Patricia, their mother's sister, had been shooting disapproving glances their direction all evening from table 3, the family table Ava hadn't been invited to sit at. Patricia, who'd made her fortune in real estate, and her reputation on judging everyone else's life choices. "Don't worry about her, sweetheart. She looks like she smells something bad." Sophie, "Well, she does." Ava bit back a laugh, despite everything. The kid wasn't wrong. Patricia had perfected that expression. The one that said she was perpetually surrounded by people who'd disappointed her, which, in Ava's case, was probably accurate. 29 years old, single mother, working double shifts as a pediatric nurse at Chicago Memorial just to keep their studio apartment and Sophie's asthma medication covered. Not exactly the Carter family legacy. Not like Melissa, who'd married a hedge fund manager and now lived in a Lincoln Park brownstone that probably cost more than Ava would earn in 10 lifetimes. The music shifted, something slow and romantic. Couples flooded the dance floor. Ava watched her own mother, Eleanor Carter, glide past in the arms of some family friend, her silver gown catching light. Eleanor's eyes skated over Ava's table without stopping, like she was looking at wallpaper. That hurt more than it should have. You'd think after years of being the family disappointment, the sting would fade. It didn't. "I need to use the bathroom," Sophie announced. "Okay, I can go by myself. I'm not a baby." Sophie slid off her chair with 6-year-old determination. "All right, but straight there and straight back. Don't talk to strangers." "Mom, I know." Sophie rolled her eyes in a way that was definitely learned from watching too many Disney Channel shows, then headed toward the hallway where the restrooms were tucked away like secrets. Ava watched her go, that familiar anxiety knotting in her stomach. The world felt dangerous in ways it hadn't before she'd become a mother. Every moment Sophie was out of sight felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. She reached for her water glass and found it empty. Great. Even hydration was abandoning her tonight. Well, Ava Carter." The voice hit her like ice water. She didn't need to turn around to know who it belonged to. Her body recognized it before her brain caught up, some muscle memory from a past she'd worked hard to bury. She turned anyway. Marcus Webb stood behind her chair, looking like every bad decision she'd ever made wrapped in a custom Tom Ford suit. Tall, conventionally handsome in that catalog model way, with sandy hair styled just messy enough to look effortless. The kind of man who'd always known he was good-looking and had weaponized it accordingly. Next to him stood a woman Ava vaguely recognized from Melissa's engagement party. Tall, blonde, wearing a dress that probably cost more than Ava's car. Correction. More than the car she'd sold last year because she couldn't afford both a car and Sophie's medical bills. "Marcus," Ava's voice came out flat. Good. Flat was better than the alternative emotions currently fighting for dominance in her chest. You look... Marcus's eyes traveled down, then back up. Not appreciatively, assessingly, like she was a house he'd once considered buying but passed on. Different. It's been 4 years. Has it? Feels longer. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. It never had, really. Funny how she'd missed that detail when she was 23 and stupid. This is Veronica, my fiancée. Of course she was. Ava had heard through the family gossip mill, the one that worked with brutal efficiency, that Marcus had gotten engaged. To someone appropriate, someone from the right background, with the right connections, who probably had never worked a double shift in her life. Congratulations, Ava said, because what else was there to say? Veronica's smile was sharp. Thank you. Marcus has told me so much about you. Doubtful. Or if he had, it was probably a sanitized version. The story where he was the hero who'd dodged a bullet, not the coward who'd walked away the second the pregnancy test came back positive. How's... Marcus pretended to think like he'd forgotten. He hadn't. Sophie? That's her name, right? She's wonderful. Ava's hands clenched in her lap, hidden beneath the tablecloth. Smart, healthy, perfect. That's good. Marcus shifted his weight, uncomfortable. Must be hard, though, raising a kid alone, on a nurse's salary. There it was. The pity wrapped in condescension, the implication that her life was something to be survived rather than lived. We managed just fine. I'm sure. Veronica's voice dripped with a sympathy that felt like acid. It must be so difficult. Marcus mentioned you two dated briefly? Briefly. 2 years condensed into a footnote. A pregnancy reduced to an inconvenience. A daughter erased from his history like she'd never existed. We did, Ava said. Well, everyone makes mistakes when they're young, don't they? Veronica squeezed Marcus's arm possessively. The important thing is learning from them. The implication landed like a slap. Ava was the mistake. Sophie was the consequence. And Marcus, standing there in his expensive suit next to his appropriate fiancée, was the one who'd learned and moved on to better things. Ava opened her mouth. To say what? She wasn't sure. Something cutting. Something that would wipe that smug expression off both their faces. Excuse me. The voice came from behind Marcus. Deep. Textured with an accent Ava couldn't quite place. Italian, maybe? The kind of voice that made people stop talking and pay attention without even trying. Marcus turned, irritation flickering across his face at the interruption. Then the irritation died, replaced by something else. Wariness. Maybe even fear. The man standing there was imposing. That was the word that came to Ava's mind first. Tall, easily 6'2" or 6'3", with dark hair swept back from a face that looked like it had been carved rather than born. Sharp cheekbones, strong jaw, a nose that might have been broken once and healed slightly crooked. He wore a black suit that probably cost more than Melissa's wedding dress, fitted perfectly across broad shoulders. But it was his eyes that caught Ava. Dark, almost black in the ballroom lighting, and completely unreadable. I need to speak with the lady, the man said. Not a request, a statement. Marcus puffed up slightly, the way small dogs did when confronted by wolves. We're in the middle of a conversation. No. The man's gaze flicked to Marcus, then dismissed him just as quickly. You were in the middle of leaving. Something passed between them. Some unspoken understanding that Ava couldn't parse. But Marcus went pale. Actually pale, like the blood had drained from his face. Right, yes, of course. Marcus grabbed Veronica's arm. There's someone I need to... Nice seeing you, Ava. They were gone before Ava could process what had just happened. Simply melted back into the crowd like they'd never been there at all. The man watched them go, then turned his attention fully to Ava. Up close, he was even more striking and terrifying. There was something predatory about him, something that suggested he was very good at violence even if he was currently wrapped in civilization. Forgive the interruption, he said. His voice was smoother now, less commanding. I hope I didn't overstep. No. Thank you? It came out as a question because Ava genuinely wasn't sure what had just happened. A slight smile touched his mouth. It didn't make him look friendlier. May I sit? Every instinct Ava had developed over years of night shifts in sketchy neighborhoods screamed that this was a bad idea. This man was dangerous. Everything about him radiated danger, from the way he moved to the way people seemed to unconsciously create space around him as they passed. But he'd also just made Marcus Webb, who'd abandoned her pregnant and alone, retreat like a kicked dog. Sure, she said. He sat across from her with fluid grace, folding his hands on the table. His fingers were long, elegant, but his knuckles were scarred. Luca Moretti, he said by way of introduction. Ava Carter. I know. That should have been creepy. It was definitely creepy. But somehow coming from him, it just felt factual. You know who I am? Ava asked. I make it a point to know who's who at these events. His eyes studied her face with an intensity that made her want to squirm. You don't seem to be enjoying yourself. Is it that obvious? You've been sitting alone all evening. Everyone else at your table has migrated elsewhere. And that man who was just here? Luca's expression hardened almost imperceptibly. He made you unhappy. You could tell that from across the room? I'm observant. Ava should have been alarmed. The stranger had been watching her. But there was something about the way he said it, matter of fact, not creepy, that made it feel different. He's my ex, she found herself saying. Sophie's father. He left when I was pregnant. I see. Luca's tone didn't change, but something flickered in those dark eyes. And the woman with him felt the need to remind you of your place. Something like that. People like that, Luca said quietly, only have power if you give it to them. Easy to say when you're... Ava gestured vaguely at him. Whatever you are. That slight smile again. And what do you think I am? Rich, powerful, probably used to getting what you want. Observant, he echoed her earlier word back at her. Then he leaned forward slightly. I have a proposition for you, Ava Carter. I don't... Hear me out. He raised a hand. The rest of this evening is going to be excruciating for you. Your family has seated you in exile. Your ex-boyfriend and his fiancée will likely circle back to remind you of your failures, and you'll smile and endure it because what choice do you have? Every word landed like a punch because it was true. That was exactly what the rest of the night held. What if, Luca continued, you had a different option? What kind of option? Pretend to be my companion for the evening. He said it so calmly, like he was suggesting they share an appetizer. Let me give you the armor you need to get through this. Ava stared at him. You want me to pretend to be your, what, date? Girlfriend? Partner, Luca said. Just for tonight. I need someone on my arm who isn't... He seemed to choose his words carefully. Connected to my usual circles. And you need to not feel like prey at your own sister's wedding. Why would you do that? Does it matter? Yes, Ava said. It absolutely matters. People don't just offer to help strangers for no reason. Luca regarded her silently for a moment. You're right, they don't. Let's say I have my reasons, and they don't involve hurting you. That's not reassuring. It's honest. He stood smoothly. Think about it. I'll be at the bar. If you decide you'd rather spend the rest of this evening being reminded of your failures by people who should love you instead, that's your choice. But if you want one night where you're not the woman they pity, he extended his hand. Dance with me. It was insane. Completely insane. Ava didn't know this man. He could be anyone. A stalker, a con artist, someone worse. But Marcus and Veronica were across the room, and Aunt Patricia was still shooting disapproving looks, and her own mother was laughing with guests at the family table where Ava didn't rate a seat, and this dangerous stranger was offering her something she hadn't felt in years. A way out. Ava took his hand. His grip was firm, warm. He led her to the dance floor with the same fluid grace he'd shown sitting down. People parted for him automatically, some doing double takes as they recognized him. Whispers started. Ava could see mouths moving, eyes widening. Who was this man? The song was something slow, instrumental. Luca's hand settled on her waist, proper but confident. His other hand held hers raised between them. You don't know how to dance like this, he observed. I know how. You're stiff, nervous. He pulled her incrementally closer. Follow my lead. Don't think. I always think. I noticed. There was something almost amused in his tone. Try not thinking, just for 3 minutes. It should have been awkward. Ava couldn't remember the last time she'd danced with someone who wasn't Sophie bouncing around their apartment to Disney soundtracks. But Luca moved with such certainty that it was easier to follow than fight. They swayed, turned. His hand on her waist was steady, anchoring. Everyone's staring, Ava whispered. Let them. Who are you really? Does it matter right now? Yes. Luca smiled, and this time it reached his eyes. Honestly, I'm someone who saw a woman sitting alone, looking like she wanted to disappear and thought she deserved better. You don't know anything about what I deserve, don't I? He spun her gently, then pulled her back. You're a pediatric nurse, single mother, working yourself to exhaustion to give your daughter a good life. You came to this wedding even though you knew it would be torture because family matters to you, even when they don't deserve it. His eyes locked on hers. Am I wrong? How do you know all that? I told you. I'm observant. The song shifted to something with a stronger beat. Couples around them adjusted, but Luca kept the same rhythm, the same measured movement. Your ex is watching us, he said casually. Ava's first instinct was to look. Luca's hand on her waist tightened slightly, keeping her focused on him. Don't look. Let him wonder. Luca's voice dropped lower. Let him see what he walked away from. This is crazy. Probably. He didn't sound concerned. But you're smiling now. That's different from 10 minutes ago. He was right. Despite everything, the insanity of the situation, the fact that she was dancing with a complete stranger who somehow knew too much about her, Ava was smiling. The song ended. Applause rippled through the ballroom for the band. Luca stepped back, releasing her waist, but keeping hold of her hand. So, he asked, do we have an arrangement? Ava should have said no. Should have thanked him for the dance, collected Sophie from the bathroom, and gone home to their studio apartment where things made sense. Instead, she heard herself say, what exactly would this arrangement entail? Stay by my side for the rest of the evening. Laugh at my conversation. Let people assume we're together. His thumb brushed over her knuckles, casual but deliberate. In return, I guarantee no one will make you feel small again tonight. And after tonight? After tonight, we go our separate ways. You return to your life, I return to mine. No strings, no complications. It sounded too simple. Nothing was ever that simple. But Marcus was definitely watching now. And Veronica. And Aunt Patricia's face had gone from disapproving to shocked. Even Eleanor Carter had stopped mid-conversation to stare. For the first time all night, Ava wasn't invisible. Okay, she said. One night. Luca's smile was sharp, satisfied. Excellent. Shall we get a drink? He led her toward the bar, his hand settling proprietarily on the small of her back. The crowd parted. People noticed. Ava Carter, the family embarrassment, walking with someone who radiated power and danger in equal measure. A man in a dark suit, security, Ava realized, materialized next to Luca. He whispered something in Italian. Luca's expression didn't change, but his hand on Ava's back pressed slightly firmer. Understood, Luca said in English. Then to Ava, excuse me one moment, don't move. He stepped away, joining two other men near the edge of the ballroom. They spoke in low voices, heads bent together. Serious. Whatever they were discussing, it wasn't wedding small talk. Mom! Ava turned to find Sophie racing toward her, pink dress flying. She scooped her daughter up automatically. Hey, baby, what happened to the bathroom? I went. Then I saw you dancing. Sophie's eyes were bright. You looked like a princess. I don't know about that. You did. Who was that man? Good question. A friend of the family. The lie tasted wrong. He looked scary out of the mouths of babes. He's not scary, Ava said, though she wasn't entirely sure that was true. He's just serious. Mrs. Patterson says serious people are just sad people who won't admit it. Mrs. Patterson was their neighbor, a 70-year-old widow who watched Sophie sometimes when Ava's shifts ran late. She had a lot of opinions about everything. Mrs. Patterson says a lot of things. Is he your boyfriend? Sophie, because if he is, he should meet me first. I'm good at telling if people are nice. He's not my boyfriend. We just met. Oh, Sophie sounded disappointed. Because you looked happy. You don't look happy a lot. That hurt more than it should have. Ava prided herself on keeping her struggles away from Sophie, on being strong, on making sure her daughter never felt the weight of their circumstances. Apparently, she'd failed. I'm happy, Ava said. I'm happy with you. But you could be happier, with someone else too. 6 years old and already too smart. Ready to go? Luca's voice came from behind her. Ava turned, Sophie still in her arms. Luca stood there, his expression softening slightly as he looked at the girl. And who's this? He asked. Sophie, Ava said. My daughter. Sophie, this is Mr. Moretti. Luca, he corrected, his attention fully on Sophie now. It's nice to meet you, Sophie. Sophie studied him with the brutal honesty of childhood. You're really tall. I am. And your suit is shiny. It's silk. That's expensive, right? Luca's mouth twitched. Yes. Are you rich? Sophie! Ava's face heated. That's not polite. It's fine, Luca said. To Sophie, I have money, yes. Does that bother you? Sophie considered this seriously. No, but my mom says rich people are sometimes mean. Are you mean? I can be, Luca said honestly, when I need to be. But not to my mom? No, not to your mom. Or to me? Or to you? Okay, Sophie nodded, satisfied. You can stay. Ava wanted to die of embarrassment. Sophie, you can't just... She's direct, Luca said. I appreciate that. He looked at Ava. Would you like me to arrange for her to be taken care of? There's a children's room set up. Professional nannies, activities. No. Ava's response was immediate, sharp. She stays with me. Something flickered in Luca's eyes. Approval? Of course. Then she'll need to come with us. Come where? Your family is requesting photos. The bride specifically asked for you. That was surprising. Melissa had barely acknowledged Ava existed all night. Why would she... Because, Luca said quietly, she's noticed you're no longer sitting alone looking miserable. And families like this always want to control the narrative. He was right. Ava could see Melissa near the photographer's setup, looking their direction. Eleanor was there too, and several aunts and uncles. They wanted to know what was happening, who this man was, why Ava Carter, of all people, had caught his attention. Lead the way, Ava said. They crossed the ballroom together, Luca, Ava carrying Sophie, becoming a strange little unit. People tracked their movement. Conversations paused. Melissa met them near the photographer, her smile perfect and completely fake. Ava, there you are. We need family photos. Of course. And this is? Melissa's eyes raked over Luca. Luca Moretti, he introduced himself smoothly. Congratulations on your wedding. Thank you. Melissa's smile widened, more genuine now. Are you a friend of Ava's? Yes. That single word carried weight, claimed something. Ava felt it settle around her like armor. How wonderful. Melissa's tone suggested it was anything but wonderful. I didn't realize Ava was seeing anyone. We prefer to keep things private, Luca said. His hand found Ava's waist again, possessive. Until we're certain. Eleanor materialized beside them, elegant and cold. Mr. Moretti, I'm Eleanor Carter, Ava's mother. A pleasure. Eleanor's eyes narrowed fractionally. Moretti. That's Italian. Yes. And you're in Chicago for business. Luca smiled, but it was the smile of a shark. Among other things. The photographer cleared his throat. If we could get the family assembled? What followed was 15 minutes of staged photos. The whole Carter clan arranged and rearranged like chess pieces. Ava, normally relegated to the edges, found herself pulled forward by Luca's presence. He refused to step out of the shots, his hand always somewhere on her, waist, shoulder, the small of her back. Claiming her. The family noticed. How could they not? Aunt Patricia was particularly bothered, Ava noticed with some satisfaction. Every time the photographer clicked, Patricia's expression grew more pinched. "One with just the bride's immediate family," the photographer called. Ava started to step back, pulling Sophie with her. Luca remained exactly where he was. "That includes Ava," he said mildly. "Well, yes, but," Eleanor began. "She's your daughter, the bride's sister." Luca's voice never rose, but something in it made Eleanor stop talking. Immediate family. Melissa looked like she wanted to argue, but her new husband, Trent, whispered something in her ear. She nodded, resigned. The photo was taken with Ava in it, front row even. Sophie on her hip, Luca's hand on her shoulder. When it was finally over, Ava felt exhausted. Sophie had grown heavy, starting to doze against her shoulder. "I should take her home," Ava said quietly to Luca. "I'll have my driver take you." "You don't have to—" "Ava." He turned to face her fully. "We have an arrangement, remember? Let me uphold my end." Before she could argue, Marcus appeared. Again, like a bad penny. "Ava, could I speak with you? Privately?" "No," Luca said flatly. Marcus bristled. "I wasn't talking to you." "I don't care." Luca stepped slightly in front of Ava and Sophie. Not aggressive, just immovable. "The lady is with me. If you have something to say it now or not at all." "This is about my daughter." "Your daughter?" Luca's voice dropped to something dangerous. "Interesting. I was under the impression you'd abdicated that role 4 years ago." Marcus went red. "That's not— We had an agreement. You had a child. You chose to walk away." Luca's accent thickened slightly. "Don't pretend that was mutual. You don't know anything about our situation. I know enough." Luca's eyes were black ice. "I know you left a pregnant woman to fend for herself. I know you're now engaged to someone else. I know you came over here tonight with your fiancé to make Ava feel small about the choices you forced on her." He stepped forward. Marcus stepped back. "What I don't know is why you're still standing here instead of walking away like you're so good at." "Are you threatening me?" "Merely suggesting." Luca smiled without humor. "You should return to your fiancé. She looks concerned." Veronica was indeed hovering nearby, watching with wide eyes. Marcus opened his mouth, closed it, then turned and left without another word. Ava realized she was shaking. Sophie had woken up, looking between them with confusion. "What just happened?" Ava whispered. "I kept my promise," Luca said. "No one makes you feel small tonight. That includes him." "Who are you really?" Before Luca could answer, someone else approached. One of the men in dark suits from earlier. He leaned in, whispering urgently in Italian. Luca's expression hardened. "I have to go," he said to Ava. "Something's come up." "Right, of course." She shifted Sophie's weight. "Thank you, for tonight. This isn't over. We agreed one night. I'm changing the agreement." Luca pulled out a card from his jacket pocket. Simple, black, embossed with a phone number. Nothing else. "Call me tomorrow." "Why would I—" "Because what started tonight doesn't end here." His eyes locked on hers. "Trust me." Then he was gone, striding away with his security detail, leaving Ava standing in the middle of her sister's wedding reception, holding a business card that felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds, and wondering what she'd just gotten herself into. Around her, the party continued, but everything felt different now. Changed. Ava looked down at the card, then at Sophie, who'd fallen back asleep against her shoulder. One night, she'd thought, but as she watched Luca disappear through the ballroom doors, followed by dangerous men in dark suits, Ava had the sinking feeling that one night was just the beginning. The question was, beginning of what? Ava didn't call. 3 days passed, and the black business card sat on her kitchen counter like a grenade with the pin half pulled. She'd pick it up, turn it over in her fingers, then set it back down. Every single time. Sophie noticed, because of course she did. Kids always notice the things you hoped they wouldn't. "Why do you keep looking at that card?" she asked over breakfast Thursday morning. "Cheerios. Because that's what they could afford. The generic kind that came in a bag, not a box." "I'm not looking at it." "You looked at it 3 times while I was eating." Ava sighed. "Eat your cereal. We're going to be late." Late for what? It's your day off. Late for your play date with Emma, Mrs. Patterson's granddaughter, who visited Thursdays. Sophie's only real friend because playdates cost money Ava didn't have, and other mothers in their building didn't want their kids hanging around the broke single mom's apartment. Sophie brightened. Can we make cookies? If Mrs. Patterson says it's okay. They got through breakfast, got Sophie dressed, made it to Mrs. Patterson's apartment down the hall. The older woman took one look at Ava's face and frowned. You look terrible. Good morning to you too, Helen. Mrs. Patterson waved a dismissive hand. I'm 73. I've earned the right to be blunt. What's wrong? Nothing. I'm fine. You're a terrible liar. Helen ushered Sophie inside where Emma was already setting up dolls in the living room. Then she turned back to Ava, blocking the doorway. Spill. It's nothing, just something from the wedding. The wedding where your family treated you like you had a contagious disease? That wedding? Ava managed a weak smile. That's the one. And there wasn't any point in hiding it. Helen had a way of extracting information like a professional interrogator, probably from all those years teaching middle school. I met someone. A man. He helped me with my family, and now he wants me to call him, and I don't know if I should. Helen's eyebrows climbed toward her hairline. A man helped you at a wedding and gave you his number? That's called interest, sweetheart. It's not like that. It was an arrangement, temporary, just for the night. What kind of arrangement? Ava explained, leaving out the parts that made Luca sound dangerous. The suits, the security, the way Marcus had gone pale. Just the basics. Stranger offers to pose as her boyfriend for the evening, makes her family take notice, ends with a business card and instructions to call. Helen listened without interrupting, which was unusual. When Ava finished, the older woman was quiet for a long moment. What's his name? She finally asked. Luca Moretti. Something flickered across Helen's face. Recognition? Fear? It was gone too quickly to identify. And you're scared, Helen said. I'm not scared. You absolutely are. You're terrified. Not of him necessarily, of what calling him might mean. Ava slumped against the door frame. It was supposed to be one night, clean, simple. Now he wants to extend it, and I don't understand why. Maybe he likes you. He doesn't know me. He knows enough to give you his number. Helen's expression softened. Ava, you've been alone for 4 years. You work yourself to death. You take care of Sophie. You don't date. You don't do anything for yourself. Maybe this man sees something worth pursuing. Or maybe he's dangerous. Most interesting people are. That made Ava laugh despite everything. You're not helping. I'm not trying to help. I'm trying to make you think. Helen reached out, squeezed Ava's shoulder. You want my actual advice? Call him or don't, but stop torturing yourself with the maybe. Make a choice and live with it. Simple. Impossible. Ava made it back to her apartment and stared at the card for another hour before her phone rang. Not the number on the card, her mother's number. She almost didn't answer, but years of conditioning won out. Hello? Ava. Eleanor Carter's voice was crisp, businesslike. We need to talk. About? About the scene you caused at your sister's wedding. Ava's grip tightened on the phone. I didn't cause any scene. You showed up with some man, made a spectacle. Your sister is mortified. Melissa seemed fine when we took family photos. Don't be obtuse. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Eleanor's voice sharpened. Who is Luca Moretti? So that's what this was about, not concern, curiosity, and probably fear that Ava had somehow stumbled into something that might reflect badly on the family. A friend. Don't lie to me. I asked around. No one knows him. He's not from our circles. Maybe I have circles you don't know about. Eleanor made an impatient sound. This isn't funny, Ava. That man had security, professional security. The way people reacted to him, that's not normal. So I want to know what you've gotten yourself involved in. The hypocrisy was stunning. Eleanor, who'd barely spoken to Ava in years, who'd seated her at table 17, who'd watched Marcus and Veronica corner her without intervening, now suddenly cared about Ava's choices? I'm 29 years old, Ava said quietly. I don't need your permission for anything. You're a mother. You have responsibilities. Don't. The word came out sharp enough to cut. Don't you dare lecture me about responsibility. I've been handling my responsibilities alone for 4 years while you pretended Sophie didn't exist. Silence on the other end. Then, that's not fair, isn't it? When's the last time you saw your granddaughter, Mom? When's the last time you called to ask how we were doing? You made your choices. I had a baby. That was my choice. Marcus leaving, struggling to pay rent, working doubles just to keep us fed. Those weren't choices. Those were consequences of someone else's choices. Ava's voice shook. And you know what? I'm done apologizing for it. She hung up before Eleanor could respond. Her hands were trembling. The card sat on the counter, black and pristine and promising something she couldn't name. Ava picked up her phone and dialed before she could talk herself out of it. 2 rings. Then, Ava! Luca's voice smooth and certain, like he'd been expecting her call. Like he'd known she'd break. How did you know it was me? I gave you a private number. Only you have it. A pause. I'm glad you called. I almost didn't, but you did. That's what matters. She heard something in the background. Voices, movement. Are you free this afternoon? Yes. Sophie's at a play date. Good. I'll send a car for you. 2:00. Wait, I didn't agree to Ava. His voice gentled slightly. You called because you want answers. I'll give them to you, but not over the phone. Where are we going? Somewhere we can talk without interruption. Trust me. There was that phrase again. Trust me. From a man she didn't know, who'd appeared out of nowhere and turned her life sideways in the span of one evening. She should say no, hang up, block the number. Okay, she heard herself say. 2:00. Wear something comfortable. We'll be walking. He hung up before she could ask what that meant. Ava stood in her tiny kitchen, phone still pressed to her ear, wondering what she'd just agreed to. The car arrived at exactly 2:00. Not a car, a town car. Sleek, black, with tinted windows and a driver in a suit who opened the door for her without a word. Ava climbed in, feeling completely out of her depth. The interior was leather and luxury. A bottle of water sat in the cup holder, unopened. Classical music played softly through hidden speakers. The driver pulled away from her building smoothly, heading north. They drove for 20 minutes, leaving her neighborhood behind. The buildings got nicer, the streets cleaner. They passed through Lincoln Park, continued north into Lakeview. Finally, the car pulled up to a small park near the lake. Ava recognized it. She'd brought Sophie here once before she'd sold the car. It was quiet, tree-lined, with walking paths and benches overlooking the water. Luca was waiting on one of those benches. He stood as the car stopped, moving to open her door before the driver could. He wore dark jeans, a black sweater, boots. Casual, but still somehow imposing. Thank you for coming, he said. You didn't give me much choice. You always have a choice. He gestured toward the path. Walk with me? They started along the lakefront, the September wind cool off the water. For a few minutes, neither spoke. Ava kept stealing glances at him, trying to reconcile this man with the one from the wedding. Here, in daylight, he seemed almost normal. Almost. Your mother called you, Luca said finally. Not a question. How did you... You have that look, the one people get after dealing with family that drains them. She wanted to know who you are. And what did you tell her? That it was none of her business. Ava stopped walking, turned to face him. But now I'm asking, who are you really? Luca met her gaze steadily. What did you find when you searched my name? She hadn't expected him to know she'd looked. Heat crept up her neck. Not much, some business registrations, import-export companies, a few society photos from charity events. That's the official version. And the unofficial version? He resumed walking. After a moment, Ava followed. My family has been in Chicago for 3 generations, Luca said. We came from Sicily originally, built businesses, made connections. Some legitimate, some less so. Less so meaning illegal? Meaning complicated. He glanced at her. You're smart enough to have guessed some of this, the security, the way people reacted at the wedding. You knew I wasn't just a businessman. I suspected. And yet you called anyway. I wanted answers. Or you wanted to see me again. It wasn't arrogant the way he said it, just factual. Ava didn't confirm or deny it. They reached a more secluded area of the path, shaded by old trees. Luca stopped, leaning against the railing overlooking the lake. I'm part of an organization, he said quietly. One that operates outside traditional law. We handle certain activities, protection, import, distribution. Some legal, some not. You're in the mafia. That's a term. Not inaccurate, but simplified. He watched her face carefully. Does that scare you? It should have. It absolutely should have. But Ava found herself thinking about the way he'd stood up to Marcus, the way he'd made her family take notice, the gentleness in his voice when he'd spoken to Sophie. I don't know, she said honestly. Should it? Probably. Luca's mouth quirked slightly. Most people would have run by now. I'm not most people. No, you're not. He straightened, turning to face her fully. I'm going to be honest with you, Ava. More honest than I've been with anyone in a long time. Okay. What happened at the wedding wasn't random. I noticed you because someone pointed you out. One of my associates recognized your ex-boyfriend, Marcus Webb. His father does business with some people I'd rather not do business with. Competitors. Ava's stomach sank. So, approaching me was strategic. Initially? Yes. Luca stepped closer. I thought it would be useful. A connection to the Webbs, even tangentially. Information, leverage, something. That's horrible. I know. He didn't look away. But then I actually talked to you, danced with you, watched you with your daughter, and it stopped being strategic. You don't know me. I know enough. I know you're strong, stronger than you think. I know you'd rather struggle alone than ask for help. I know you love your daughter more than anything. His voice lowered. And I know that when you smiled at me on that dance floor, it was the first real smile you'd had all night. Maybe in a long time. Ava's breath caught. He was right. All of it. What do you want from me? She whispered. The same thing I offered at the wedding. An arrangement, extended. Why? Because I need someone at certain events. Someone not connected to my world. Someone who won't ask questions they shouldn't. He paused. And because I think you need this too. The protection, the respect, the ability to stop feeling small. That's manipulative. It's honest. Luca reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. His fingers brushed her cheek. I won't lie to you, Ava. Not about what I am or what I want. You deserve that much. And what do you want? You. On my arm at events, playing the role we started at the wedding. His thumb traced her jawline. Nothing physical unless you want it. No danger. You and Sophie stay completely separate from my work. Just the appearance of a relationship. In exchange for what? Financial security, protection, your family's respect, or at least their silence. His hand dropped. And my company, when you want it. Someone who sees you, not the struggle or the single mother label. Just you. It was tempting, dangerously tempting. This is insane, Ava said. Yes, I barely know you. We can fix that. You're a criminal. In some people's eyes, he smiled slightly. In mine, I'm a businessman working in a complicated market. That's semantics. Maybe. Ava turned away, gripping the railing. The lake stretched out before them, endless and gray. Below, the city hummed with traffic and life and normalcy. She should say no. She should walk away, go back to her apartment, her shifts, her careful budget, stay safe. But safety hadn't gotten her much, had it? Safety meant Marcus walking away. Safety meant her family's contempt. Safety meant working herself into exhaustion and still struggling to make rent. What happens when you're done with this arrangement? She asked without turning around. We discuss it, together, no sudden endings. And if I want out before then, you tell me. And it's done. No questions, no consequences. She turned to face him. You just let me walk away. You're not a prisoner, Ava. This only works if you choose it. His expression was serious, open. I need you to understand that. Every day you stay, it's your choice. My mother thinks you're dangerous. I am dangerous, just not to you. How can you be sure? Luca was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. I had a sister, younger, She was kind, gentle, nothing like the rest of us. She fell in love with someone in the organization. He promised to protect her. Then he used her as a bargaining chip when things got difficult. Ava's chest tightened. What happened? She died because someone saw her as expendable, as leverage. His jaw clenched. I swore I'd never let that happen again. Anyone under my protection stays under my protection. No exceptions. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry, just understand. He met her eyes. I'm offering you this arrangement because I want to, because I think it benefits both of us. But the moment you or Sophie are at risk, it ends. Your safety matters more than any deal. It should have sounded rehearsed, manipulative, but there was something raw in his voice, something that spoke of real pain. Ava took a breath. If I agree to this, I need rules. Name them. Sophie comes first, always. If anything about this puts her at risk, I'm out. Agreed. No lying to me. I don't care how ugly the truth is. Agreed. And I keep my job, my apartment, my life. This arrangement doesn't consume everything. Of course. Luca tilted his head. Anything else? If I ask you to back off, you back off, immediately. Done. He extended his hand. Do we have a deal? Ava looked at his hand. Scarred knuckles, long fingers. A hand that had probably done terrible things. A hand that had also been gentle on her waist, careful with her daughter. She shook it. His grip was firm, warm. He held on a moment longer than necessary. When do we start? She asked. There's an event Saturday night. Art gallery opening, very public, very visible. Your family's circles will hear about it. What should I wear? I'll have something sent to you, size 6. How did you... I'm observant, remember? He released her hand. The car will pick you up at 7. Can Mrs. Patterson watch Sophie? You know about Mrs. Patterson? I know about everyone in your life who matters. It's called due diligence. That should have been creepy. Somehow it just felt thorough. She can watch Sophie, Ava said, but I need to be home by midnight, no exceptions. Midnight it is. Luca gestured back toward the parking area. Come on, I'll have the driver take you home. They walked back in silence. Ava's mind was spinning, trying to process what she'd just agreed to. A fake relationship with a mafia boss. Financial support in exchange for public appearances. It sounded like something from a movie, not real life. But the card in her pocket was real. The town car waiting was real. The man beside her, dangerous and compelling in equal measure, was very real. The driver opened the door. Ava started to climb in, then paused. Luca? He turned. Yes? Why me? Really? You could have anyone. He was quiet for a moment, considering. Because when I watched you at that wedding, sitting alone but refusing to leave, refusing to let them break you, I saw strength, real strength, not the kind you're born with, the kind you earn. His eyes held hers. And because you looked at me like I was just a man, not a name, not a threat, just a man. I haven't had that in a long time. Before Ava could respond, he stepped back and nodded to the driver. The car pulled away. Ava watched through the rear window as Luca stood on the sidewalk, hands in his pockets, growing smaller as distance increased. What had she just done? Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Thank you for trusting me. L. Ava stared at the message. Trust. That word again. She typed back, Don't make me regret it. His response came immediately. I won't. The car merged onto Lakeshore Drive, heading back toward her neighborhood. Back to reality. But reality felt different now, like it had shifted 5 degrees off its axis. Ava leaned her head against the window and closed her eyes. Saturday, an art gallery, playing the role of Luca Moretti's partner in front of people who mattered. She should have been terrified. Instead, she felt something else entirely. Alive. The dress arrived Friday afternoon in a garment bag that probably cost more than Ava's monthly rent. She hung it on the back of her bedroom door and stared at it for 20 minutes before Sophie noticed. What's that? Her daughter asked, abandoning her coloring book on the floor. A dress. For tomorrow night. Can I see it? Ava unzipped the bag slowly, like she was diffusing a bomb. The fabric that emerged was midnight blue, silk that caught the light and held it. Simple lines. Elegant cut. Nothing flashy. Somehow that made it more expensive looking, not less. Sophie's eyes went wide. It's like a princess dress. It's just a dress, baby. Where are you going? Good question. Ava had been asking herself the same thing for 2 days. An art gallery with Luca. The tall man from the wedding? Yes. Sophie touched the fabric carefully. Reverent. Are you going to marry him? What? No, we're just friends. That's what Mrs. Patterson said about Mr. Chen, and now they have dinner together every Friday. Mrs. Patterson and Mr. Chen from 4B were both widowed and in their 70s. Hardly comparable, but try explaining that to a 6-year-old. It's different, Ava said. How? It just is. She zipped the bag back up. Come on, time for dinner. They ate mac and cheese from a box, the cheap kind that came with powder instead of real cheese. Sophie chattered about her day at school, about Emma, about the bird she'd seen on the playground that Mrs. Patterson said was a cardinal. Normal. This was normal. But the dress hanging on the door was a reminder that normal was becoming negotiable. After Sophie went to bed, Ava tried the dress on. It fit perfectly, of course. Luca's observant nature extended to measurements, apparently. She stood in front of the bathroom mirror, barely recognizing herself. The woman looking back looked capable, confident, like someone who belonged at art galleries with powerful men. Ava turned away before the illusion could break. Her phone buzzed. Another text from Luca. Reminder, car at 7. Eat something before. These events have terrible food. She typed back, noted? Nervous? Ava hesitated, then decided on honesty. Terrified. Good. Means you're smart. A pause, then. You'll be fine. I'll be right there. That shouldn't have been comforting, but it was. Saturday crawled by with the speed of cold honey. Ava cleaned the apartment, did laundry, helped Sophie with a puzzle. Normal weekend tasks that felt surreal knowing what the evening held. At 5, she started getting ready. Shower, hair, makeup, more makeup than she usually wore, watching a YouTube tutorial on her phone to get the technique right. The dress went on at 6:30. Sophie watched from the doorway, mesmerized. You look different, she said. Bad different? No, just not like my mom. That stung a little, but Ava understood. This version of her was foreign to both of them. Mrs. Patterson arrived at 6:45 to watch Sophie, took one look at Ava, and let out a low whistle. Well, that's some dress. Too much? Not even close. Helen ushered Sophie toward the living room. You look like you could buy this building. Hell, the whole block. It's borrowed. The dress is borrowed. The woman wearing it isn't. Helen squeezed her arm. Go. Have fun. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. That's not a very limiting instruction. Exactly. The car arrived precisely at 7. Same driver, same town car. This time Ava felt slightly less out of place climbing into it. The gallery was in River North, all glass and steel and modern architecture. Light spilled from the windows onto the sidewalk where people in expensive clothes clustered, smoking and laughing. Ava's stomach clenched. The driver opened her door. She stepped out onto the sidewalk, suddenly hyper-aware of every eye that turned her direction. Then Luca was there. He wore a dark suit, charcoal gray with a black shirt underneath. No tie. His hair was swept back, and in the gallery lights, he looked like something carved from shadow and sharp edges. You look beautiful, he said quietly. The dress is doing most of the work. The dress is just fabric. His hand settled on her waist, familiar now. Ready? No. Perfect. Let's go. The gallery interior was all white walls and polished concrete floors. Modern art hung in careful arrangements, abstract pieces that probably cost 6 figures each. People milled around with champagne glasses, their conversations a low hum beneath classical music. Ava recognized some faces from the wedding, society types, the ones who'd watched her dance with Luca and whispered behind their hands. They were watching now too. Breathe, Luca murmured against her ear. I am breathing. You're holding your breath. I can feel it. His thumb pressed gently against her ribs. In, out, like you tell patients before procedures. He was right. She was doing that thing where she forgot basic bodily functions under stress. Ava forced herself to breathe normally. A woman approached, 50-something, dripping diamonds and that particular brand of wealth that came from generations of money. She air-kissed Luca on both cheeks. "Darling, I didn't know you'd be here." "Victoria, you look well." Luca's tone was polite, distant. "This is Ava Carter. Ava, Victoria Blackwood. She owns the gallery." Victoria's gaze raked over Ava with the subtlety of a prison searchlight. "Carter. Any relation to the Eleanor Carter?" "She's my mother." "How lovely." Victoria's smile was all teeth. "I had lunch with Eleanor just last week. She didn't mention you." Of course she hadn't. "I'm sure she had more interesting topics to discuss," Ava said evenly. Something flickered in Victoria's eyes. "Reassessment, maybe." "Indeed." "Well, enjoy the show. Luca, we should talk later about that shipment from Milan." "Monday," Luca said. Not a suggestion. Victoria drifted away. Ava let out a breath. She's terrifying. She's a shark in a designer dress, but harmless if you don't show fear. Luca steered her toward a painting, slashes of red and black across white canvas. "What do you think?" "Of the painting?" "Of Victoria. I think she knows exactly who I am and exactly how much I don't belong here." "And yet you're still standing." Luca's voice held approval. "That's what matters." They moved through the gallery slowly, stopping at paintings that Ava didn't understand but pretended to appreciate. Luca seemed genuinely interested in the art, making observations about technique and composition that surprised her. "You actually know about this stuff," she said. "My mother was an art history professor before she married into the family." A shadow crossed his face. "She used to drag me to museums every weekend. I hated it then. And now? Now I see what she was trying to teach me, that beauty can exist even in ugly situations." He gestured at a particularly violent abstract. "That one's about war. The artist's brother died in Afghanistan." Ava looked at the painting again, seeing it differently. The red wasn't just paint. It was blood, grief, loss. "That's horrible." "Yes, but also honest." Luca's hand on her waist tightened slightly. "Don't turn around, but Marcus Webb just walked in." Ava's heart kicked. "You're kidding." "I don't kid about things like this. He's with his fiancée. They're near the entrance." "Did he see us?" "Not yet, but he will." Luca's voice stayed calm, almost amused. "Question is, what do you want to do about it?" What did she want to do? Run? Hide? Pretend she hadn't noticed? No, she was done shrinking. "Let him see us," Ava said. Luca's smile was sharp. "There's my girl." They moved to the next section, a series of photographs. Black and white portraits, starkly beautiful. Ava felt Marcus's presence like a weight on her spine, but she didn't turn, didn't acknowledge him. "Ava Carter," Marcus's voice, closer than expected. Ava turned slowly, Luca's hand steady on her waist. Marcus stood 3 feet away, Veronica beside him. His expression was carefully neutral, but his eyes were doing calculations. "Marcus, Veronica." Ava kept her voice pleasant. "Enjoying the show?" "We just arrived. Didn't expect to see you here." "Why wouldn't I be here?" Marcus's gaze flicked to Luca, then back. "Just surprising. This isn't usually your scene." People change. Ava felt Luca's thumb trace a slow circle on her hip, grounding. "Have you met Luca?" "We crossed paths at the wedding." Marcus's tone was too casual. "Moretti, right?" "That's right." Luca's voice could have cut glass. "What business are you in?" "Import, export, various investments." Luca's expression gave nothing away. "And you're in finance, I believe." "Hedge fund management." "Interesting. I've heard things about the Webb family funds, not all positive." The temperature dropped 10 degrees. Veronica's hand tightened on Marcus's arm. "I'm not sure what you've heard," Marcus started. "Just industry talk, you know how it is." Luca smiled, pleasant and deadly. "Money has a way of finding trouble if you're not careful." Marcus went red. "I don't appreciate the insinuation." "Then don't make me explain it." Luca's hand moved from Ava's waist to her hand, fingers lacing through hers. "Excuse us. There's a piece Ava wanted to see." He led her away before Marcus could respond. Ava's heart hammered. What was that? She whispered. A warning. His family's fund is under federal investigation. He knows I know. Now he knows I could make it worse. You'd do that? If he bothered you again? Absolutely. Luca stopped in front of a sculpture, twisted metal that somehow suggested grace. I don't make empty threats, Ava. She believed him. That should have scared her. Instead, it felt like being wrapped in armor. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of faces and conversations. Luca introduced her to dozens of people, collectors, artists, business associates. Some looked at her with curiosity, others with thinly veiled disdain. Ava held her ground, smiled when appropriate, stayed quiet when she had nothing to contribute. By 10:30, her feet hurt and her face ached from smiling. You're done, Luca said quietly. I'm fine. You're exhausted. Come on. He steered her toward the exit, pausing only to say goodbye to Victoria. The cool night air was a relief after the gallery's recycled atmosphere. The town car waited. Luca opened the door himself this time. That wasn't so bad, Ava said as they pulled away from the curb. You were perfect. I barely spoke. You didn't need to. You were present, composed, unbothered by the people who tried to make you feel small. He shifted to face her. That's what matters. Marcus looked like he wanted to punch you. He's not stupid enough to try. Luca's expression was mild, but he'll think twice before approaching you again. The car merged into traffic. Chicago blurred past the windows, lights, and movement. Thank you, Ava said quietly. For what? For making this easier than it should have been. That's the arrangement. But his voice was soft, almost gentle. They rode in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Then Ava's phone buzzed. A text from Helen. Sophie's asleep. Take your time. She showed Luca the message. He read it, nodded. Would you like to get coffee? He asked. It's almost 11. I know a place. Open late, quiet. No one will bother us. Ava should have said no. Should have gone home, checked on Sophie, returned to reality. Okay, she said instead. The driver changed direction without being told. 10 minutes later, they pulled up to a small cafe in an area Ava didn't recognize. Warm light glowed from the windows. A neon sign proclaimed it Santino's. Inside was exactly what Luca had promised. Quiet, almost empty, with worn wooden tables and the smell of good coffee. An older man behind the counter looked up, his weathered face breaking into a smile when he saw Luca. Luca! Too long, ragazzo. Santino. Luca embraced the man briefly. This is Ava. Ava, Santino makes the best espresso in Chicago. He's biased, but not wrong. Santino's eyes crinkled as he smiled at Ava. What can I get you, Bella? Just coffee, regular. Boring. I'll make you something better. Santino waved them toward a table. Sit, sit. They sat in a corner booth, the leather cracked, but comfortable. Luca shrugged out of his jacket, draping it over the back of his seat. Without it, he looked less intimidating, almost approachable. You come here often? Ava asked. When I need to think. Santino was a friend of my father's. This place has been here 40 years. It's nice. Real. Yes. Luca leaned back. I don't get much real anymore. Santino appeared with 2 cups, setting them down with a flourish. Cappuccino. Trust me. Ava sipped. It was perfect, smooth, rich, with the right balance of espresso and milk. See? Santino grinned. I don't lie. He disappeared back behind the counter, leaving them alone. So, Luca said, how are you really feeling about tonight? Honestly, I'm not sure. Ava wrapped her hands around the cup, absorbing its warmth. Parts of it were awful. The staring, the judgment, Marcus. And the other parts? The other parts were empowering, I guess. Walking into that room and not feeling invisible. She met his eyes. That was you. Your presence changed how they saw me. No, that was you. I just gave you permission to let them see. That's generous. It's true. Luca's gaze didn't waver. You think I make people respect you? I don't. I just make them afraid to disrespect you. There's a difference. Ava considered that. I'm not sure I understand the distinction. Respect comes from what you are. Fear comes from what I am. Tonight, they were afraid of me. But what they saw when they looked at you, that strength, that grace, that was all you. It was strange hearing herself described that way. Strong, graceful. Ava had spent so long thinking of herself as struggling, barely keeping her head above water, that other descriptions felt foreign. I don't feel strong, she admitted. The strongest people rarely do. That's a platitude. Doesn't make it less true. Luca sipped his cappuccino. You raised a child alone, worked yourself to exhaustion, faced your family's contempt without breaking. That's strength. Or stubbornness. Often the same thing. He smiled slightly. Tell me about Sophie. The change of subject surprised her. What about her? Anything, everything. She's clearly the center of your world. I want to understand why. Ava found herself talking. About Sophie's birth, terrifying and beautiful. About the first year, sleep-deprived and struggling. About watching her daughter grow, every milestone a small miracle. About Sophie's laugh, her questions, the way she saw the world with 6-year-old clarity. Luca listened without interrupting, his attention complete. She sounds remarkable, he said when Ava finally wound down. She is. She's better than I deserve. Don't do that. Do what? Diminish yourself. Sophie has a good mother. Own it. Ava looked down at her cup. Some days I'm not sure that's true. Sophie seems sure. That's what matters. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. The cafe was almost empty now, just an old man reading a newspaper in the corner and Santino humming behind the counter. Can I ask you something? Ava said. Always. Your sister, the one you told me about. She hesitated. What was her name? Pain flickered across Luca's face, quick but profound. Julia. She was 22 when she died. I'm sorry. It was 8 years ago. The man responsible is dead. Luca's voice went flat. I made sure of that. Ava should have been horrified. She wasn't. Good. That surprised him. She could see it in his eyes. You don't judge me for that? He asked. Should I? Someone hurt your sister, killed her. You made sure they couldn't hurt anyone else. She met his gaze steadily. That's not justice, maybe. But it's something. Most people would call it murder. Most people didn't lose someone they loved. Luca was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. You continue to surprise me, Ava Carter. Is that good or bad? Good. Definitely good. The moment stretched between them, waited with things unsaid. Then Ava's phone buzzed. Helen, checking in. I should get home, Ava said reluctantly. Of course. They left money on the table. Luca tried to pay, but Santino refused, waving them off with a grin. The town car materialized as they stepped outside, like it had been waiting around the corner. The drive back to Ava's neighborhood was quiet. Luca sat closer than strictly necessary, his shoulder brushing hers. Not pushy, just present. When they reached her building, he walked her to the door. Thank you, Ava said, for tonight. Thank you for agreeing to it. Luca's hand came up, brushing a strand of hair from her face. There's another event next weekend, charity dinner, more formal than tonight. I'll need another dress. I'll arrange it. His thumb traced her cheekbone, feather light. You did beautifully tonight, Ava. I hope you know that. I felt like I was faking it the whole time. Everyone at that gallery was faking something. At least your performance was honest. He stepped back, hands dropping to his sides. Get some rest. I'll call you this week. He was halfway to the car when Ava called out, Luca? He turned. What you said about respect versus fear. I think I understand now. Yeah? Yeah, they might be afraid of you, but I'm not. She smiled. That has to count for something. His answering smile was genuine, warm. It counts for everything. He left. Ava watched the town car disappear around the corner, then headed upstairs. Mrs. Patterson was dozing on the couch, a book open in her lap. She startled awake as Ava entered. How was it? Helen asked, struggling to her feet. Complicated. Good. Terrifying. Ava helped her up. Thank you for watching, Sophie. Anytime, sweetheart. That child's an angel. Helen gathered her things, paused at the door. You look different. Everyone keeps saying that. Because it's true. You've got this, Helen searched for the word, glow, like you remembered you're allowed to want things. After Helen left, Ava checked on Sophie. Her daughter was sprawled across the bed, stuffed elephant clutched tight. Ava brushed hair from her face, pressed a kiss to her forehead. "Love you, baby," she whispered. Back in her own room, Ava carefully removed the dress, hanging it back in its garment bag. She caught her reflection in the mirror again. Same face, same body. But Helen was right. Something had changed. She looked like someone who'd decided to stop apologizing for existing. Ava's phone buzzed. Another text from Luca. "Sleep well, you earned it." She smiled, typing back, "You too." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, harder than it sounds. Why? Can't stop thinking about tonight. Ava's breath caught. The gallery? You. She stared at the message for a full minute before responding. That's dangerous territory. I know, doesn't make it less true. We have an arrangement, a fake one. Yes, we do. A pause. Doesn't change what I said. Ava's fingers hovered over the keyboard. She should shut this down. Remind him and herself that this was transactional, professional, safe. Instead, she typed, "Good night, Luca. Good night, Ava." She set the phone down, lay back on her bed, stared at the ceiling. This was supposed to be simple. An arrangement. Protection and respect in exchange for public appearances. Clean, transactional, no complications. But nothing about Luca Moretti felt simple, and the way her heart had kicked when he touched her face, the warmth that spread through her chest when he smiled. None of that felt transactional. Ava closed her eyes, but sleep was a long time coming. Somewhere across the city, in a penthouse she'd never seen, Luca was probably doing the same. Staring at shadows, thinking about things that shouldn't matter but did. The arrangement was already breaking its own rules. Neither of them was ready to admit it yet. But the truth was there, patient and inevitable, waiting for them to catch up. The following Tuesday, Ava's world tilted on its axis in a way she didn't see coming. She was 3 hours into a double shift at Chicago Memorial, charting medication for a 7-year-old with pneumonia, when her phone buzzed. Unknown number, but the message made her stomach drop. "We need to talk. About Sophie. Marcus." Her hands went numb. Marcus hadn't mentioned Sophie by name since she was born. 4 years of silence, and now this? She stepped into the medication room, locked the door, called him back. He answered on the first ring. "What about Sophie?" Ava's voice was steel. "I've been thinking. Maybe I was too hasty. Walking away." "Too hasty?" Ava couldn't believe what she was hearing. "You abandoned your pregnant girlfriend. That's not hasty. That's a choice. I was young, scared, I made mistakes." Marcus's tone was conciliatory, reasonable. It made her skin crawl. "But I'm in a different place now. Veronica and I have been talking about family and—" "No. Ava, be reasonable." "I am being reasonable. You don't get to decide you want to be a father now because it's convenient for your life plans." Her grip on the phone tightened. "Sophie doesn't know you. You're a stranger. I have rights. You signed them away. Remember? The termination of parental rights agreement? Your lawyer drew it up. You couldn't sign fast enough." Silence on the other end, then. "Things can be renegotiated." "Not this. Never this." Ava's heart hammered. "Stay away from us, Marcus." "Or what? You'll have your boyfriend threaten me again?" So that's what this was about. Luca had gotten under his skin at the gallery, and Marcus was pushing back the only way he knew how, through Sophie. "Luca has nothing to do with this." "Doesn't he? Suddenly you're connected to someone with real power and you think that changes things." Marcus's voice hardened. "I looked into him, Ava. Luca Moretti isn't someone you want near your daughter, my daughter." "She's not your daughter. She stopped being your daughter when you walked away." Ava's voice cracked despite her best efforts. "Don't contact me again." She hung up, hands shaking so badly she nearly dropped the phone. A knock on the medication room door made her jump. Her colleague Sarah's voice came through. "Ava, you okay in there?" "Fine, just a minute." She wasn't fine. She was the opposite of fine. But she had 3 more hours on her shift and patients who needed her, so fine would have to do. Ava made it through the rest of her shift on autopilot. smiled at patients, administered medication, charted vitals. All while her mind spun with worst-case scenarios. Could Marcus actually try for custody? Would a judge even listen after 4 years? What if he used Luca against her, painted her as unfit because of the association? By the time she clocked out at 7, her head was pounding. She picked up Sophie from Helen's apartment, declined the invitation to stay for dinner, and got them both home. Sophie chattered about her day while Ava made grilled cheese, only half listening. "Mom, you're not paying attention." "Sorry, baby. What did you say?" "I said Emma's mom invited me to her birthday party. It's at that place with the trampolines." Sophie's face fell. "But it costs money, so I told her probably not." Ava's chest constricted. 6 years old and already understanding that money dictated what she could and couldn't do. "We'll figure it out," Ava said. "When is it?" 2 weeks. "But Mom, it's okay if I can't go. You're going." Even if it meant picking up another shift, going further into debt. Sophie deserved normal kid experiences, birthday parties, trampolines, friends. After Sophie went to bed, Ava sat on the couch and finally let herself fall apart. Silent tears, the kind that came from exhaustion and fear and the weight of trying to be strong all the time. Her phone buzzed. Luca's name on the screen. She almost didn't answer, but something in her needed to hear his voice. "Hello? What's wrong?" Not a question, a statement. "How did you—" "I can hear it. What happened?" Ava told him. About Marcus's call, the veiled threats, the mention of custody. The words tumbled out in a rush, 4 years of fear condensing into 5 minutes of explanation. Luca was quiet when she finished. Not the comfortable silence they'd shared at the cafe. This was different, dangerous. "Where are you?" he asked finally. "Home. Why?" "I'm coming over." "Luca, it's almost 10. I'm already in the car. 20 minutes. He hung up before she could argue. Ava looked around her apartment with fresh eyes. The worn furniture, the cramped space, the peeling paint she'd been meaning to fix. This was where she lived, the reality she'd been hiding behind nice dresses and gallery appearances. But it was too late to do anything about it now. Luca arrived in 18 minutes. She heard the knock, checked the peephole, let him in. He filled her small entryway, still in a suit from whatever business he'd been conducting. His eyes swept the apartment, taking in details, then settled on her face. "You've been crying." "I'm fine." "You're not." He reached out, cupped her face in both hands. "Tell me what you need." "I don't know. I don't even know if he can do anything legally. The agreement we signed, I'll handle it." "You can't just handle—" "Yes, I can." His thumbs brushed away tears she hadn't realized were still falling. "I have lawyers, good ones. They'll review the agreement, make sure it's airtight. If Marcus tries anything, we'll bury him in paperwork until he gives up." "That's not how custody works." "It's exactly how custody works when you have the right resources." Luca's voice was gentle but firm. "Trust me, Ava. This is what I do. I protect what's mine. I'm not yours." "Aren't you?" His eyes searched hers. "We have an arrangement, remember? Part of that arrangement is protection, for you and Sophie. This isn't what I signed up for. You getting involved in my custody situation, he's using me against you. That makes it my business." Luca's jaw tightened. "And I won't let you face this alone." Ava wanted to argue, wanted to insist she could handle this herself, that she didn't need saving. But the truth was, she was terrified. And having Luca here, solid and certain and ready to fight, made the fear slightly more manageable. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." He pulled her into his chest, arms wrapping around her. It should have been awkward, this intimacy with someone she barely knew. Instead, it felt necessary, like breathing. They stood like that for a long moment. Then Luca stepped back, hands moving to her shoulders. "Show me," he said. "Show you what?" "Your life, your home, Sophie's room." He gestured around the apartment. "The real version, not the one you think I want to see." So she did. Showed him the kitchen with its dated appliances and the stove burner that only worked half the time. The living room with Sophie's toys scattered across the floor despite Ava's best efforts at organization. Sophie's tiny bedroom, barely big enough for a twin bed and dresser, covered in drawings and stuffed animals. Luca looked at everything with that same intense focus he brought to art galleries and business discussions. When they reached Ava's room, even smaller than Sophie's, with a mattress on the floor and clothes hanging from a tension rod because there was no closet, he finally spoke. How long have you lived here? 3 years, since Sophie turned 3 and I could afford to move out of the place I was sharing with 2 roommates. The rent? $1,200 a month, which is actually cheap for Chicago, but Ava shrugged. It's what I can manage. Luca was quiet, calculating. And your salary? About $42,000 a year, before taxes. She felt defensive suddenly. I know it's not much, but it's enough. We make it work. I'm not judging you, Ava. His voice was soft. I'm in awe of you. That stopped her cold. What? You're raising a child on that budget in this city, keeping her fed, clothed, happy, working yourself to exhaustion, and you're still standing. He turned to face her fully. That's not making it work. That's a miracle. Ava's throat tightened. It doesn't feel like a miracle. It feels like drowning in slow motion. Which is why you're going to let me help. The arrangement already... Forget the arrangement. Luca stepped closer. I'm talking about real help. Better apartment, financial security, no more double shifts that leave you this exhausted. I can't let you do that. Why not? Because then I'm dependent on you. And what happens when this arrangement ends? When you decide you're done playing pretend? What if it's not pretend anymore? The question hung between them, heavy with implications neither was ready to address. Luca, I know. Too much, too fast. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. But the offer stands. For now, let me get you a better security system. Camera at the door, proper locks, just in case Marcus decides to escalate. That she could accept, reluctantly. Fine, but nothing crazy, no armed guards or just cameras and locks. Promise. He glanced at his watch. It's late. I should go. Ava walked him to the door. He paused on the threshold. The charity dinner is this Saturday. Black tie. Are you still willing to go? After everything tonight, part of Ava wanted to retreat. Cancel, hide, go back to the safety of obscurity. But that's what Marcus would want. What her family expected. I'll be there, she said. Good. Luca leaned in, pressed a kiss to her forehead. Brief, chaste, but it sent warmth flooding through her. Get some sleep. My lawyers will contact you tomorrow about the agreement. He was gone before she could respond, footsteps echoing down the hallway. Ava locked the door, the flimsy lock that Luca was right to want replaced, and leaned against it. Everything was getting complicated, the clean lines of their arrangement blurring into something messier, more real. She should have been worried. Instead, she felt oddly calm. The lawyers called Wednesday afternoon. 2 of them, a man and woman, their voices crisp and professional. They reviewed the termination agreement Marcus had signed, asked detailed questions about his recent contact, took notes. This agreement is solid, the woman, Catherine, said. He'd have a very difficult time challenging it. But we'll file a preemptive motion anyway, just to create a paper trail. How much will this cost? Ava asked, dreading the answer. It's handled. Mr. Moretti has retained us on your behalf. Of course he had. The security installation happened Thursday. 2 technicians, efficient and professional, installing cameras at her door and windows, replacing her locks with something that looked like it belonged in a bank vault. Sophie watched with fascination. Are we getting robbed? No, baby, just being careful. Because of my dad? Ava's heart stopped. What? I heard you talking to Mrs. Patterson about how he called you. Sophie's expression was too old for 6. Is he going to try to take me away? Ava knelt down, pulling Sophie into a fierce hug. No one is taking you anywhere, ever, I promise. But what if he wants to? Then we'll deal with it, together. Ava pulled back, meeting her daughter's eyes. You're safe, Sophie, always. Sophie nodded, but her expression stayed troubled. That night, she crawled into Ava's bed, something she hadn't done in over a year. Mom? Yeah, baby? Is Luca going to stay? Or is he going to leave like my dad did? Ava didn't have an answer to that. Their arrangement had an expiration date built in, even if neither had mentioned it lately. I don't know, she said honestly. But whatever happens, you and I, we're forever. Okay? Okay. Sophie fell asleep quickly, but Ava lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling. Saturday arrived faster than Ava was ready for. Another dress. This one, deep emerald green, more formal than the last. Heels that made her 3 inches taller. Hair and makeup that took an hour. Helen watched Sophie again, giving Ava an encouraging squeeze as she left. The charity dinner was at the Drake Hotel, all marble columns and crystal chandeliers. The crowd was older, wealthier, more serious than the gallery opening. Ava recognized several faces from the news, politicians, business magnates, society fixtures. Luca met her at the entrance, devastating in a tuxedo. His eyes widened when he saw her. "You look—" He seemed to lose words, which was unusual. "Incredible. The dress is doing heavy lifting again." "The dress is just fabric," he repeated his line from before. But this time his voice was rougher. "You're beautiful, Ava. Own it." The dinner was seated, which meant 3 hours of small talk with strangers while eating food Ava couldn't identify. She sat between Luca and an older man who introduced himself as Judge Morrison, retired from the circuit court. "How do you know Luca?" the judge asked pleasantly. "We met at my sister's wedding," Ava said, sticking to the truth as much as possible. "Ah, and what do you do?" "I'm a pediatric nurse at Chicago Memorial." The judge's eyebrows rose. "Really? That's refreshing. Most of Luca's associates are in more traditional fields." Ava wasn't sure what that meant, but it didn't sound like a compliment. Luca's hand found hers under the table, squeezed gently. Grounding. The evening dragged. Speeches about charitable causes Ava had never heard of. Auctions for items that cost more than her annual salary. Through it all, Luca stayed close, his presence a steady anchor. During dessert, a woman approached their table. Tall, elegant, around Luca's age. She had the kind of beauty that came from excellent genetics and better plastic surgery. "Luca, it's been too long." Luca's expression went carefully neutral. "Alessandra, aren't you going to introduce me to your companion?" Alessandra's smile was sharp. "Ava Carter, Alessandra Ferrara." "Pleasure." Alessandra's eyes raked over Ava, dismissive. "Carter, any relation to the Chicago Carters?" "My family, yes." "How lovely. I went to boarding school with your cousin Christina. Lovely girl. Married that senator's son, didn't she?" Ava had no idea. She barely knew Christina. "I believe so," she said vaguely. "And you're a nurse? How altruistic." Alessandra turned her attention to Luca. "I'd love to catch up. Perhaps coffee sometime." "I'm quite busy," Luca said flatly. "I'm sure you could make time, for old time's sake." Her hand landed on his shoulder, possessive. Something ugly twisted in Ava's stomach. Jealousy, which was ridiculous. This was an arrangement. Luca could have coffee with whoever he wanted. "Alessandra, this isn't the time," Luca said, his voice developing an edge. "Oh, I see. You're playing devoted boyfriend." Alessandra laughed, brittle. "How sweet. Does she know this is temporary? That you always move on?" "That's enough." Luca stood towering over her. "Ava, excuse us for a moment." He steered Alessandra away from the table, their conversation too quiet to hear but clearly heated. The judge leaned over. "Don't mind her. Alessandra and Luca were engaged years ago. It ended badly." "Oh, that explained the venom." "He broke it off." She never quite forgave him. The judge smiled kindly. "But I've known Luca since he was a boy. I've never seen him look at someone the way he looks at you. Whatever this is between you two, it's not what Alessandra thinks." Ava didn't know what to say to that. Luca returned a few minutes later, Alessandra nowhere in sight. He sat down heavily. "I apologize for that." "You don't have to—" She was out of line. His jaw was tight. "And wrong. About everything." The rest of the dinner passed without incident. By the time they left, Ava was exhausted, her feet screaming in the heels. In the car, Luca was quiet. Too quiet. "You okay?" Ava asked. "I should ask you that. Alessandra was cruel. She's your ex, I get it. She's someone I made a mistake with a long time ago." Luca turned to face her. "What she said about this being temporary." "It is temporary. That was the deal." "Was." His eyes held hers. Past tense. Ava's breath caught. Luca. I know this started as an arrangement, business, but somewhere between that wedding and tonight, it became something else for me. He reached for her hand, and I think it did for you too. She should deny it, keep the boundaries clear, protect herself from inevitable heartbreak. Yeah, she whispered instead. It did. Luca pulled her closer, his forehead resting against hers. So what do we do about it? I don't know. This is complicated. You're what you are. And I have Sophie to think about. I know, which is why we go slow. Figure this out together. His thumb traced circles on her palm. But I need you to know, this isn't a game for me anymore. You matter. Sophie matters. Before Ava could respond, the car jolted to a sudden stop. The driver swore in Italian. Luca's head snapped up, instantly alert. What? The driver's window exploded. Everything happened in fragments. Luca shouting, pulling Ava down, the driver slumping forward. More gunfire, deafening in the enclosed space, glass everywhere. Someone wrenched open Luca's door, grabbed him. Ava screamed, reaching for him, but rough hands seized her too. A cloth over her mouth and nose, chemical smell. Then nothing. Ava woke to darkness and the smell of mildew. Her head throbbed where it had hit something during the struggle, and her wrists were zip-tied behind her back. The emerald dress was torn at the shoulder, one heel missing. She blinked hard, trying to orient herself. Warehouse, maybe. High ceilings, concrete floor, the distant sound of traffic. Not abandoned. She could hear voices somewhere nearby, speaking in rapid Italian. Luca? Her voice came out hoarse. Here. His voice, close. Relief flooded through her. Don't move too much. Are you hurt? Ava tested her limbs carefully. Everything worked, nothing broken. I don't think so. You? I'm fine. Listen to me carefully. A door opened, spilling harsh fluorescent light across the space. 3 men entered. 2 she didn't recognize, muscle in cheap suits. The third made her stomach drop. He was older, maybe 60, with silver hair and a face that suggested he smiled rarely and meant it never. Expensive suit, gold watch, the bearing of someone used to absolute authority. Ah, you're awake. Good. His accent was thick, old-world Italian. I apologize for the rough handling. My men sometimes forget their manners. Who are you? Ava demanded, trying to keep the fear out of her voice. Salvatore Rossi. He said it like she should recognize the name. When she didn't react, he smiled thinly. Luca hasn't told you about me? I'm hurt. We're business competitors, Luca said from somewhere to her left. Salvatore runs the Southside operations. Or he did, before his products started getting intercepted. Because you've been feeding information to the feds. Salvatore's pleasant tone didn't change, which made it more terrifying, costing me millions, destroying relationships that took decades to build. You were trafficking children. Luca's voice was ice. That's not business. That's evil. So that's what this was about. Ava's mind raced, trying to piece together the politics of a world she didn't understand. Salvatore waved a dismissive hand. Morality is relative in our line of work. You know this. But you chose to interfere, and now there are consequences. His eyes landed on Ava, starting with her. She has nothing to do with this, Luca said sharply. Doesn't she? You parade her around Chicago, make her visible at every important event. You think I don't know what that means? Salvatore moved closer to Ava, studying her like she was an insect. You care about this one, which makes her valuable. Touch her, and you're dead. Empty threats from her man tied to a chair. Salvatore smiled. But I'm not unreasonable. I'm prepared to offer you a choice, Luca. Stop interfering with my operations. Publicly support my expansion into the North Side territories. Do this, and the girl walks away unharmed. And if I refuse? Salvatore pulled a gun from his jacket, not pointing it at anyone, just holding it casually. Then I start removing her fingers. One at a time, until you agree, or she runs out of fingers. Whichever comes first. Ava's breath stopped. This wasn't posturing. He meant it. You're insane, she heard herself say. Salvatore looked at her with mild interest. No, cara. I'm practical. In this business, leverage is everything, and you, He gestured with the gun. You are excellent leverage. She's a civilian, Luca said, his voice strained. A mother. She has a 6-year-old daughter who needs her. Let her go, and I'll give you whatever you want. Will you? Because I don't think you will. Salvatore crouched in front of Ava, close enough that she could smell his cologne. Expensive, cloying. Tell me, Ava Carter, are you worth Luca's empire? Because that's what he'd be giving up. Everything he's built, his reputation, his power, all for you. Ava met his eyes, refusing to look away. He shouldn't give you anything, especially not for me. That surprised him. His eyebrows rose. Brave. Or stupid. I haven't decided which. Salvatore stood, turning back to Luca. She tells you not to negotiate. Interesting. Most women would be begging by now. Most women haven't spent 4 years fighting alone, Ava said. Her heart hammered, but her voice stayed steady. You think cutting off my fingers will break me? I've been broken before. I survived. I'll survive this too. Salvatore studied her for a long moment. Then he laughed, genuine amusement. I see why you like her, Luca. She has spine. The laughter stopped. Which will make this more entertaining. He raised the gun, pointed it at Ava's knee. Last chance, agree to my terms, or the warehouse door exploded inward. What happened next was chaos. Men in tactical gear swarming through the entrance, weapons drawn. Shouting in English and Italian, Salvatore spinning toward the commotion, his gun tracking. Luca, somehow free of his restraints, launching himself at Salvatore. They went down hard, struggling for the weapon. The 2 bodyguards reached for their guns, but the tactical team was faster. Shots fired. One bodyguard dropped. The other raised his hands in surrender. Someone cut Ava's zip ties. She scrambled away from the fight, her hands numb and useless. Luca and Salvatore were still grappling, the gun between them. Then the gun went off. For a horrible moment, Ava couldn't tell who'd been shot. They both froze. Then Salvatore slumped sideways, red spreading across his white shirt. Luca stood slowly, the gun in his hand, his expression blank. Boss? One of the tactical team, a man Ava vaguely recognized from the wedding security. We need to move. Police will be here in 5 minutes. Luca nodded mechanically. Then he seemed to remember Ava, turning to find her. You're okay? I'm fine. Are you? We need to go. Now! He crossed to her, helping her stand. Her legs nearly buckled. Can you walk? Yes. They moved quickly, Luca half carrying her through the warehouse. Outside, 3 black SUVs waited, engines running. Luca put her in the middle vehicle, climbed in after her. The convoy pulled away just as sirens became audible in the distance. Ava was shaking now, delayed shock setting in. Luca pulled her against his chest, his heart pounding against her ear. You're safe, he murmured. You're safe now. You killed him. Yes. No hesitation, no remorse. He was going to shoot me. I know. Luca's arms tightened around her. I would have killed 100 men before letting that happen. The words should have scared her. They didn't. Maybe that made her damaged, or maybe she was just too tired to care about morality anymore. How did you get free? She asked. The zip ties were plastic. I dislocated my thumb. He held up his hand. The thumb was definitely not sitting right. I'll reset it later. That's insane. You called a man holding a gun on you insane. To his face. Luca laughed, slightly hysterical. We're both insane. The SUV headed north, away from the warehouse, toward neighborhoods Ava recognized. Toward home. Where are we going? She asked. Your apartment. You need to see Sophie. Right, Sophie. Ava's chest constricted. Her daughter was with Helen, safe and oblivious to the fact that her mother had nearly died tonight. What do I tell her? Nothing. Not yet. Luca smoothed her hair back from her face. We'll figure that out later. Right now, you just need to hold her. They arrived at her building 15 minutes later. Luca walked her up, his dislocated thumb now reset. Ava had heard the pop, tried not to vomit. At Helen's door, he stopped. I'll wait out here. You're not coming in? You need time with Sophie, alone. His expression was gentle. I'll be here when you're ready. Helen opened the door, took one look at Ava's torn dress and pale face, and went white. What happened? Long story. Is Sophie asleep? On my couch. Ava, not now, please. Ava squeezed past her, found Sophie curled up under a blanket, Mr. Elephant clutched tight. Ava gathered her daughter carefully, lifting her without waking her. Sophie stirred, blinked sleepily. "Mom? Hey, baby, let's go home." "Kay." Sophie's arms wrapped around Ava's neck, trusting and warm. Back in their apartment, Ava tucked Sophie into bed, watching her daughter's face in the dim nightlight glow. This perfect, innocent person who trusted Ava to keep her safe. Ava had failed tonight, had gotten herself into a situation where Sophie could have lost her mother. She was still sitting there, spiraling, when her phone buzzed. "Luca, I'm outside if you need me." Ava found him in the hallway, leaning against the wall. He straightened when she emerged. "Is she okay?" "She doesn't know anything happened. Thank God." Ava wrapped her arms around herself. "This is my fault." "No, it is. I knew what you were, what being with you meant. And I did it anyway, and tonight I almost died, and Sophie almost lost her mother." Tears spilled over. "I can't do this, Luca. I can't risk her." Luca's face went carefully blank. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying this arrangement, or relationship, or whatever it's become, it's over. It has to be. Ava, you were right from the beginning. People in your world, they use the people you care about as leverage. Salvatore proved that. And the next time, I might not get lucky." She forced herself to meet his eyes. "I won't put Sophie through losing me, not for anything." "Then don't." Luca stepped closer. "Walk away from this. From me. Go back to your life, your double shifts, your studio apartment. Be safe. That's what I'm trying to... But know this." His voice dropped, intense. "Salvatore wasn't the only threat. There are others, already circling, already noticing you. The moment you became visible at that wedding, you became a target. Leaving me doesn't change that." Ava's stomach sank. "You're saying I'm in danger no matter what?" "I'm saying you're safer with my protection than without it." Luca's jaw clenched. "I have resources, people, ways to keep you and Sophie secure, but only if you let me." "That's manipulative." "It's true." He didn't look away. "You can hate me for it, but I won't lie to you, Ava. Not about this." She wanted to argue, wanted to believe that going back to obscurity would protect them, but she'd seen the look in Salvatore's eyes. Men like that didn't forget, didn't forgive. "So what do I do?" The question came out broken. "You let me keep you safe. Both of you." Luca reached for her hand. "No more public events if you don't want them. No more pretending, just protection, security, and the knowledge that anyone who threatens you answers to me. And what do you get out of this? You. Sophie. The chance to be something other than what my world made me." His thumb traced her knuckles. "I'm not a good man, Ava. But for you, I'm trying to be better." Ava searched his face, looking for deception. Found only exhausted honesty. "This is crazy," she whispered. "I know. I should tell you to leave, to never contact me again. Probably. But I can't." The truth felt like surrender. "Because you're right. I am safer with you, and Sophie deserves every protection I can give her, even if it comes from someone like you. Someone like me." Luca's smile was bitter. "A criminal. A killer. Someone who stood between me and a man with a gun. Someone who would dislocate his own thumb to get free." Ava stepped closer. "Someone who looks at my daughter like she matters. She does matter. You both do." They stood in the hallway, inches apart, the weight of everything unsaid pressing down. "I don't know how to do this," Ava admitted. "How to be with someone like you. We figure it out. Together." Luca cupped her face. "No more arrangements. No more pretending. Just us, figuring out if this thing between us is real. It feels real. Then that's enough for now." He leaned down, pressed his forehead to hers. "Go get some sleep. I'll have security posted downstairs tonight." "You're not staying?" "Do you want me to?" "Yes." The answer surprised her with its immediacy. After everything tonight, the terror, the violence, the reality of what being with Luca meant, she still wanted him close. "On the couch," she said. "Sophie shouldn't wake up and find you in my bed." "The couch is fine." They went inside. Luca settled on the worn sofa without complaint, looking absurd in his tuxedo on her second-hand furniture. Ava found a blanket, draped it over him.
"Thank you," she said quietly. "For tonight. For coming for me. Always." His hand caught hers. "Sleep, Ava. I'll be here." She made it to her bedroom, checked on Sophie one more time, then collapsed onto her mattress fully clothed. Sleep should have been impossible, but exhaustion won. The next few weeks passed in a strange new rhythm. Luca kept his word. No more public events, no pressure to play a role. But his presence became constant in quieter ways. Security upgrades to the building that benefited all the tenants, explained away as new landlord policy. A better car seat appearing in Helen's car for when she drove Sophie to school. Groceries delivered weekly, premium quality, but packaged to look generic. Ava noticed, didn't comment. Some battles weren't worth fighting. Marcus's custody threat evaporated. Catherine, the lawyer, called to say he'd withdrawn his interest completely after his father's hedge fund came under scrutiny. Nothing that could be traced back to Luca, of course. But Ava knew. Eleanor called once, her voice tight. "I don't know what you've gotten yourself into with Luca Moretti, but people are talking." "Let them talk," Ava said. "This isn't you. You're not someone who associates with criminals." "You don't know what I am, Mom. You never bothered to find out." Ava's voice stayed calm. "I'm done apologizing for my choices. If that bothers you, don't call." She hung up. It felt good. Sophie asked about Luca exactly once. "Is he going to be around a lot?" "Probably. Is that okay?" Sophie considered this seriously. "Does he make you happy?" "Yeah, baby, he does." "Then it's okay." Sophie returned to her coloring. "But he should know I'm in charge of movie selection on Fridays."
When Ava told Luca this, he laughed. "Noted. I assume Disney is mandatory? You have no idea." He started coming for dinner twice a week. Nothing fancy, spaghetti, tacos, whatever Ava had time to make after work. He'd sit at their small table, too large for the space, and listen to Sophie chatter about school with genuine interest. "You're good with her," Ava observed one night after Sophie went to bed. "She reminds me of Julia, before everything got complicated." Luca's expression was distant. "My sister used to talk like that. Endless questions, endless enthusiasm for everything. I wish I could have met her. She would have liked you, would have said I didn't deserve you." He smiled faintly. "She would have been right." "Stop that." "Stop what?" "Acting like you're not worthy. Like being with me is charity." Ava moved to sit beside him on the couch. "You're here. You show up. You care about Sophie. That's not nothing. It's less than you deserve." "Maybe I get to decide what I deserve." Luca looked at her, something shifting in his expression. "You're going to ruin me, Ava Carter." "Good. You could use some ruining." He kissed her then, finally, after weeks of careful distance. It was gentle at first, testing, then deeper, 4 weeks of tension releasing all at once. When they broke apart, Ava was breathless. "I should probably go," Luca said, his voice rough. "Probably. Are you asking me to stay?" "Sophie's asleep. Helen's across the hall if anything happens." Ava traced his jaw. "Stay." So he did. The months that followed weren't easy. Luca's world was dangerous, complicated, full of politics Ava didn't understand. But he kept his promises. Sophie stayed separate, protected, insulated from the worst of it. And slowly, Ava's life changed in ways she'd stopped letting herself hope for. A new apartment. Bigger, in a better neighborhood. Same job. She refused to quit nursing, but fewer double shifts because the bills weren't crushing anymore. Sophie's birthday party at the trampoline place, followed by every party after that. Small things. Normal things. The life she'd been building alone, suddenly easier because she wasn't alone anymore. Her family noticed, of course. Melissa called, her tone cautious. "Mom said you're dating Luca Moretti seriously now." "I am." Are you happy?" Ava almost laughed. Since when did Melissa care about her happiness? But there was something genuine in the question. "Yeah, Mel, I am." "Good. That's good." A pause. "I'm sorry, for the wedding, for not defending you to Mom and Patricia, for being a coward. That was unexpected."
Okay, I mean it. You're my sister. I should have had your back. Melissa's voice cracked slightly. I'd like to do better. If you'll let me. It wasn't a grand gesture, wasn't years of neglect magically erased, but it was something. Start by meeting Sophie properly, Ava said. Not at some formal event, just come over for lunch sometime. I'd like that. They hung up with tentative plans for Sunday brunch. Ava stared at her phone, processing. Your sister? Luca asked from the kitchen, where he was attempting to make pancakes with Sophie's very specific supervision. Yeah, she apologized. That's progress. It's weird is what it is. Ava joined them, watching Luca flip a pancake with surprising competence. When did you learn to cook? I have many hidden talents. He grinned at Sophie. Right, Piccola? Luca can juggle, Sophie announced proudly. He showed me. 3 oranges. I'm still not convinced that wasn't an accident. It was very deliberate. My coordination is excellent, Sophie giggled. The sound filled the apartment, bright and uncomplicated. This, Ava thought, this was what happiness felt like. Not perfect. Perfection was a myth. But real. Messy. Built from broken pieces that somehow fit together. 6 months after the warehouse, Luca took Ava to Santino's cafe. The same quiet corner booth, the same perfect cappuccinos. I have something to ask you, he said. Ava's heart jumped. Okay. Move in with me. At her expression, he hurried on. Not the penthouse. Somewhere new. A house, maybe. Yard for Sophie. Extra bedrooms for when your sister visits. Safe neighborhood. Good schools. Luca, I know it's fast. I know you value your independence. But we're at your apartment or mine 6 nights a week anyway, and Sophie asked me yesterday if I was going to keep living in 2 places forever. He reached across the table. I want us to be a family. Official. Real. No more pretending. Ava's throat tightened. Sophie asked you that? She did, very seriously. Wanted to know if I was committed or just visiting. What did you tell her? That I'd talk to her mom. Luca's thumb traced her knuckles. So I'm talking to her mom. Ava Carter, will you and Sophie move in with me? Start the next chapter of this strange, complicated, probably ill-advised life we're building? She should have thought about it more. Weighed the risks, considered the complications, made a sensible, measured decision. Yes, she said instead. Luca's smile could have powered the city. Yeah? Yeah, but I picked the house. And Sophie gets final approval on her room. Deal. They found a place in Oak Park. Not ostentatious, just solid. 4 bedrooms, finished basement, backyard with an old oak tree perfect for a swing. Ava walked through it twice, imaging Sophie running through the halls, having friends over, growing up with space to breathe. This one, she told Luca. He bought it the same day. Moving happened in stages. Sophie's room first, decorated exactly how she wanted. Purple walls, constellation nightlight, bookshelf. Luca built himself that was slightly crooked but functional. Then Ava's things, her clothes finally in a real closet, her nursing textbooks on proper shelves. The night they officially moved in, Helen came for dinner. She looked around the house, at Sophie playing in the backyard, at Luca and Ava unpacking boxes in comfortable silence. You did good, sweetheart, Helen said quietly. I got lucky. Luck had nothing to do with it. You chose this, chose him, despite every reason to run. Helen squeezed her shoulder. That's not luck. That's courage. Later, after Helen left and Sophie was asleep in her new room, Luca found Ava standing in the backyard. Regrets already? He asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. No. Just processing. She leaned back into his chest. A year ago, I was barely keeping my head above water. And now I'm here in this house with you, and it feels impossible. But it's not impossible. It's real. Yeah. Ava turned in his arms. It is real. Messy and complicated and probably going to blow up in our faces sometimes, but real. I'll take real over perfect any day. Luca kissed her forehead. Speaking of real, I should probably meet your family officially, before they show up here unannounced. You want to have dinner with Eleanor and Patricia? Voluntarily? I want to do whatever makes your life easier. If that means suffering through dinner with people who judged you, then yes. So they did. One awkward Sunday dinner where Eleanor was stiffly polite,
Patricia suspicious, and Melissa genuinely trying. Luca was charming, deferent, and gave absolutely nothing away about his actual business. Afterward, Eleanor cornered Ava in the kitchen. He's not what I expected. What did you expect? I don't know, someone flashy, dangerous looking. Eleanor rinsed a wine glass carefully. He seems stable, good with Sophie. He is. You love him. It wasn't a question. Ava didn't bother denying it. I do. Eleanor was quiet for a long moment. I'm sorry for how I treated you, for making you feel like you weren't enough. You did make me feel that way. I know, and I was wrong. Eleanor set down the glass, turned to face her. You're stronger than I ever was. You built a life from nothing, raised Sophie alone, and somehow you're not bitter. You're not broken. That's remarkable. Ava felt tears prick her eyes. Thanks, Mom. Can we try to do better? We can try. It wasn't a fairy tale reconciliation. They'd never be close the way mothers and daughters in movies were. But it was a start. 3 months later, Luca proposed. Not at some elaborate event or fancy restaurant. In their kitchen, while Ava was grading Sophie's spelling homework and he was doing dishes. Marry me, he said, like he was commenting on the weather. Ava looked up. What? Marry me. He dried his hands, pulled a ring from his pocket. Simple, elegant, a sapphire surrounded by small diamonds. I know we're not conventional. I know my world is complicated, but I love you, Ava. I love Sophie. I want this to be permanent. You're proposing while I'm checking homework? I'm proposing when it felt right. He knelt, which was absurd in their kitchen, but somehow perfect. So, what do you say? Will you marry someone who's probably going to bring complicated problems into your life, but will love you through all of them? Sophie appeared in the doorway, eyes wide. Are you asking Mom to marry you? I am. Is that okay with you, Piccola? Sophie considered this very seriously. Do I get to be in the wedding? You get to be whatever you want to be in the wedding. Then yes. Mom, say yes. Ava laughed through tears. Yes, obviously yes. Luca slid the ring on her finger, kissed her thoroughly, then got tackled by Sophie demanding a group hug. They married 6 months later. Small ceremony, just family and close friends. Helen cried. Melissa gave a surprisingly heartfelt toast. Even Eleanor managed a genuine smile. Sophie was flower girl, taking her duties incredibly seriously. She walked down the aisle, scattering petals with intense concentration, then stood beside Ava throughout the ceremony. When the officiant asked if anyone objected, Sophie piped up, I object to the kissing part being too long. It's gross. The guests laughed. Luca grinned. Ava felt happiness flood through her, so intense it was almost painful. This was what she'd been fighting for all those years. Not perfection, not easy. Just real love, messy and complicated and absolutely worth it. Years later, when Sophie was older and asking about how Ava and Luca met, Ava would tell her the truth. About the wedding where she felt invisible. About the stranger who offered an escape. About the arrangement that became something neither expected. So you married him even though he was dangerous? Sophie would ask. I married him because he was dangerous, Ava would correct. But only to people who threatened us. To me and you, he was safe. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't have to make sense, baby. It just has to be true. And it was true. All of it. The fear and the courage, the risk and the reward, the broken pieces that somehow fit together into something whole. Standing in their backyard 5 years after that first wedding, watching Sophie play with her younger brother, a surprise neither planned but both welcomed, Ava thought about the woman she'd been. Sitting at table 17 feeling invisible, wondering if this was all life had to offer. She'd been wrong. Life had so much more, but she'd had to be brave enough to reach for it. Luca came up behind her, arms wrapping around her waist. What are you thinking about? How far we've come. How unlikely this all was. The best things usually are. He kissed her temple. Any regrets? Not a single one. And she meant it. The sun set over their yard, casting long shadows. Sophie shrieked with laughter as her brother stole her ball. Inside, dinner waited. Normal, domestic, beautifully ordinary.
Ava had learned something important in these years. Happiness wasn't about perfection. It wasn't about having an easy life or making all the right choices.
It was about finding someone who saw you at your worst and chose to stay anyway. Someone who fought for you when you were too tired to fight for yourself. Someone who transformed what started as an escape into something real. She'd walked into a ballroom feeling small and walked out into a life bigger than she'd imagined possible. And maybe that was the point. Maybe we're all just one choice away from a different life. One conversation, one risk, one moment of courage from everything changing. Ava had made that choice, had taken that risk. Looking at her family now, messy, complicated, perfectly imperfect, she knew she'd do it all again. Every terrifying moment, every impossible decision, every leap of faith, because this was worth it. They were worth it. And in the end, that was all that mattered.